Hello, everyone. My name is Elizabeth Paranzo, and I am going to be giving my final presentation this evening on functional communication training, FCT. Okay. Today, I will walk through key research concepts and strategies from the ABA literature to give you guys a clear understanding of how FCT is used to support individuals with autism. This presentation will provide a structured overview of FCT covering research foundations, real-world challenges, essential skill areas, evidence-based intervention strategies, and the advantages and limitations related to implementing FCT. This presentation integrates key assignments from the semester that include our portfolio, which is made up of our literature review. Mine is on the efficacy of functional communication training for students with autism spectrum disorder, the school training assignment, the advocacy letter assignment, and the behavior plan assignment. So we're going to utilize all of our assignments that we worked on this whole semester to assist with explaining FCT tonight. Okay. So function-based intervention replacing challenging behavior. So that's what FCT is. So we're using it's a function-based intervention to replace the challenging behavior. So this requires the functional analysis to identify the behavioral function. This is super important. We're going to talk about it multiple times this evening. That's the biggest takeaway, that it's a function. We need to find out the function before we can do any form of an intervention. So this teaches efficient FCR to access maintaining reinforcer. Okay, so the FCR would be the functional communication response that we're expecting, and we're going to teach that. So this could be applied at the home, school, clinic, telehealth, anywhere. We can really do this. And it is an essential component for the behavior plans. Okay, and for the literature review purposes, these are the main articles that I really leaned on. They were great. They really explained a lot. They're older, but you know what? They really are the core of FCT, and it just helps explain everything. And we still are recognizing the authors. Okay, so we're gonna get into this evening, but I wanted to just also share it on the slide. Okay. All right. So FCT originated with Carr and Durand. And they showed us that many times the challenging behaviors we were seeing with these children, they had developmental disabilities, and it was considered to be linked with limited communication skills. Therefore, when they were teaching simple function-based communication responses, it led to a significant reduction in problem behavior, which was huge. It was a huge finding because now we were able to treat some severe challenging behaviors, right? So the study included 4 children who had displayed severe disruptive behaviors, and they were maintained by escape and attention. After identifying these functions, the researchers taught the simple, more appropriate requests and allowed the children to access the same reinforcers. So as you can imagine, FCT immediately reduced problem behavior across all participants, which was great. So now what you would expect is to conduct the functional analysis, right? We said that before, we're going to say it again. Identify the maintaining reinforcer, teach a simple functional communication response, reinforce immediately. We always want to reinforce immediately. We don't want to miss that opportunity. And then we'll use extinction procedures when it's appropriate. That'll be case by case. Remember, it's punishment procedure, so we're not going to be just, we really need to be mindful in that. So that's why it says when appropriate. Okay. So now over time, FCT became such a core intervention in the field of ABA because it was supported by extensive evidence suggesting and proving, I should say rather, that it was effective. We could use it at home, we could use it in clinical settings in the community. Um, it was integrated as the primary replacement behavior strategy within the behavior plans. Um, and in this specific research, it was attention, escape, intangibles. Okay. And in research from Hagopian, um, FCT under different treatment conditions, and they focused it on an inpatient unit. Okay, so those participants were kids 2 to 16 of age, diagnosed with ASD and intellectual disability. So these behaviors were aggressive, behaviors: self-injury, property destruction, pike, and elopement. These are the behaviors that we see often, right? So this is a great example of effective treatment. Function, functional communication and training. All participants first completed the functional analysis, like we said, right? We did the functional analysis. Then there was set 10 minutes. Sessions were 10 minutes long and occurred multiple times a day. So they compared the FCT alone, the FCT with extinction, and then the FCT with punishment components. So now their finding is that it was effective. And now the strongest, most reliable behavior reduction occurred when the FCT was combined with extinction or with carefully implemented punishment procedures. Okay, so same goes here. It's case by case. What we're, when you're implementing stuff like that, we know we need our consents. We need to have the whole group involved. But this is good to know that these are the effective treatment plans that we could use. Okay. Oh, this one is really good. So this is telehealth. Okay. So I don't know if you remember back in COVID, we had some parent training or ABA sessions remote. It was a whole different world. Well, this researcher actually took that to a different level and they studied it to see, can we teach FCT to caregivers remotely? Can we coach them and have them replicate this or implement it rather? So they had 17 children. Um, and they all had ASD. They showed aggression, self-injury, property destruction, and noncompliance. Okay. Then where the parents attended these sessions at a nearby clinic while the consultants coached them live from a remote site. So it was a non-concurrent multiple baseline design across those participants. Now, what they found was that they were able to do this. So parents carried out the procedures with strong treatment fidelity, showing that in-person services aren't always necessary for effective ABA interventions. This is great information. Okay, so now we are going to talk a little bit more about the challenges that people with autism face, um, and specifically related to FCT. Okay, so they have difficulty initiating communication and expressing their needs, limited verbal, nonverbal repertoires, low frustration tolerance, and a difficulty with delays. The challenge is generalizing skills across their settings, and the prompt dependency affecting independent responding. Now, if we think about it, it's like autism spectrum disorder, it is a communication deficit. There's a huge communication deficit right there. And now we're teaching communication, how to intervene functionally, right? We want functional communication. So that all plays together here, that this would be their challenges they're facing, but we work with them on those and it's all individualized and it does work. Some um challenges they might face in the community setting, and let's just move this out of the way, it's blocking my view. The school and community, so challenges in school and community settings. So yes, inconsistent staff implementation reduces treatment fidelity. Absolutely, that definitely happens. Um, competence, competing academic demands limit immediate reinforcement. Yes, that's another thing. They need to save for the reinforcement for the effectiveness, right? But that could be a barrier if we're not in a more of a controlled environment. The high staff turnover is huge also. This definitely interrupts the intervention. Limited reinforcer availability in the structured setting. So that's another thing to think about. Like we're doing function communication, like the function. So it's um what they need right now, right? So if you don't have that, how can we deliver that? That's going to be difficult. So that environmental noise transition, it does increase the problem behavior. It can, the transitions. So there's something to be mindful of. It's not that it's not something we can work with, but it is a barrier for sure. Okay, some effective teaching strategies. This is great. Um, we identify the function. We conduct the functional analysis before doing anything, right? Then we want to teach an alternative communication, which you can see on the left. Some options. We're going to reinforce the new skill, generalize the skill. Immediate, consistent reinforcement for the FCR. So continuous, right? Continuous reinforcement in the beginning. We're also going to use the prompting systematic fading to avoid dependency. Okay. So reinforcement thinning is going to be huge. Multiple delay schedules. That's something we would talk about with our BCBA or whoever is monitoring the case. Um, that's something that should definitely be a data decision making process, right? Um, and generalization systematically, the same goes for that as well. Okay, so the skills lacking. Let me move this, excuse me. Let's get this out of the way. Okay, skills lacking in this area. So typically we might see like functional manding for attention, right? Escape tangible sensory input. Discrimination reinforcement availability. That is a big one also. The tolerance skills for waiting and transition is huge. The peer-directed communication skills, that's another big one. And then generalization, like we said before. So that barrier between generalizing across multiple people and materials. So these are things we need to be mindful. We need to be mindful about this when we're teaching. Okay, so this is an example. We have a little visual here. So we can say all done, or we could pick up the peck that says all done, any form of the all done. It could be a replacement behavior, a more appropriate functional way of saying I'm finished. Maybe the child might throw all of his toys on the floor every time he's done, and he doesn't know really how to say I'm done or get out of there, right? So he's not doing it um the functional way. This would be the functional way, right? This would be a good replacement behavior for him. So it's aligned directly with behavioral function. So discrimination training across contexts and partners. Um, and we want to generalize to those peers, caregivers, teachers, all of them. So we would take these visuals that we might be using in school and work with them at home. We want to keep that consistent. Okay. So this is super important. These skills to teach, it reduces severe challenging behavior. We know that now. Increases academic social opportunities, improves independence. We love that autonomy. That's our goal, right? We want socially significant change. Um, and support the peer engagement with social interactions and enhance long-term communication competence. This is why this is so important for our learners and the replacement behaviors we spoke of. So that could just be a verbal request, a sign, gesture, anything that allows individuals to request what they need in that more appropriate manner. It could be a PEC, picture exchange communication system. It could be sign language or a gesture, teaching this hand signals or that language rather, um, as an alternative to spoken language, right? The AAC device, tools such as communication boards, speech, these are all great tools that we will be using a lot when we're doing FCT. Okay. So ineffective teaching. So these are the ones that we're not going to do. Okay. So teaching FCR without identifying the function. We said that, right? We don't do that. What would be the purpose? Because this is a function um based intervention. We're going to intervene with the function. What is the function? We need to know it. So we need to do the FA, the FBA. We need to find that out. It's the top thing to do. Selecting our communication response are too complex or effort filled. So sometimes they're just not meeting them where they are. We could fix that though. That's easy. It's an easy fix. Now, accidentally intermittently reinforcing the problem behavior. We all do it. We don't do it on purpose. We just have to be mindful that we're not doing it. That immediacy of reinforcement is so important here, but just not intermittently reinforcing the problem behavior on accident. Um, and then fully associating prompts. We need to be mindful not to have them lean on us. We don't want them to be prompt dependent. And then, of course, ignoring generalization. We've talked about that. Some things to consider and some disadvantages. Um, so this is a lot of work. It requires consistent implementation, consistency across those environments. Extinction may lead to those bursts of emotional responding. We know that, but that is something to be aware of. That high density reinforcement may strain the classroom logistics. So that's why each case is different. It may work for some classroom and it may not work for another classroom. That's really where we come in and we assess if this is appropriate or not. And we work with our supervisor and our team to determine that. So, um, and it does require the ongoing training and performance feedback. So the procedural fidelity is going to be huge, um, with that data decision making and reinforce your sensibility. That must, be maintained at all times. Okay. Some benefits for students. Okay, so there's a lot of benefits for the students. Reduction in challenging behavior is a big one. Increased independence and communication, improved peer interaction, social skills development, greater access, and enhanced quality of life. Additional advantages of FCT is that it's so much support. There's so much evidence here. Decades worth of research. FCT is adaptable across telehealth, school, home clinic. We're not limited in how we can provide this intervention. And it's easy. It's easily individualized based on the function. Integrates into the behavior plans and all the other ABA protocols. And it's effective for severe behavior when implemented with fidelity. This is huge. That's the biggest takeaway I would say is that this is really effective for those severe cases. So now we're going to talk a little like, briefly and just summarize up what we did this semester because it was a huge part of the research and our por portfolio. So the school training assignment summary. That is the assignment that we did earlier on in the semester. And that was a really great opportunity because we were able to kind of like reframe our thinking and we weren't training parents, we weren't training staff, instead we were training the school colleagues or the school staff or the school personnel. And we were teaching them how to implement this. And it was honestly, I think, a really good opportunity for me. I definitely benefited from it. I gave an overview of an FCT and behavioral foundations um, and went over those ABA principles, gave examples, non-examples, reinforcement procedures, everything. It was a good opportunity. And then we have the behavior plan assignment summary. That was also really great opportunity in this class to do that and to keep it with the same topic too. Because it's self-injury, we keep saying over and over again, it's like this is an effective intervention for that symptom. So, or behavior rather. So yeah, I chose self-injury behavior. I wanted to see that play out. And I used the PECs, the manding, and that social interaction with the peers. And I appreciated that feedback I got from my professor and the back and forth was super supportive, in helping me just kind of build up this portfolio and have a better idea and grasp on things. Okay. And, so FCC is supported by the research, and this is again, this is the one that I did specifically. And the advocacy letter assignment summary, we're going to talk that briefly too. Talk about that one too. So this was great because it does really mirror the real world with advocacy, right? So we do need to be mindful of who we're talking to, who we're working with, what awareness level they have when we're requesting funding, right? We want to know. We want to know, is this a how are we handling this? Is this appropriate? We want to be formal, we want to be professional, we want to know our laws, we want to know our rights, we want to be able to advocate for these individuals because that's what we're doing. We're in that role constantly as even someone implementing FCT, where we are the advocate with goals to bring these clients to their own independence as much as we can. Um, so this was a great opportunity. Um, I did enjoy this one. So, we went over the short-term benefits, described how FCT teaches students immediate ways to requesting it. So this was great because we were trying to get it into a school district and it wasn't specifically for people with disabilities. So it was integration, which was even better. And ABA principles are embedded in FCT. They definitely are. Reinforcement, establishing FCR. Absolutely efficient alternative. Differential DRAs. That's exactly what it is. Extinction for the problem behavior when it's safe. Prompting, prompt fading strategies, generalization, programming, cross stimuli. This is all ABA right here. Okay. That is the end of the training, I mean, of the presentation this evening. Thank you so much. Here below are my references. Thank you.